Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So New Jersey, the governor's race is tightening up between Mikey Sherrill and Jack Ciattarelli, and he is right on her heels. He's only down roughly 48 to 44 according to the polling, but keep in mind that Jack Ciattarelli has outperformed the polls before. And this is something that not a lot of people may remember, but he was the nominee for governor in New Jersey in 2021, and he was trailing in the polls to Phil Murphy, who is an incumbent and more popular then than arguably he is now. He's lost popularity, and that may be what weighs down Mikey Sherrill. But if you want to look at this, Phil Murphy was leading the polls. He polled at 51% if you round up, which is exactly what he got. Jack was down there at 42.7. Jack ended up getting 48.2. Murphy got 51. Again, a 5-point overperformance. A lot of people said Murphy would win by close to double digits, and he only ended up winning by not even 90,000 votes in a state that Joe Biden the previous year took over Donald Trump by 17 points. And look at this, 2025. Here's the deal about the polling. Mikey Sherrill in some polls, very liberal polls, she's polling above 50. But in a lot of other polls, she's not exactly hitting the threshold she exactly needs, where Jack is doing better and he's gaining momentum and he's getting endorsements that he didn't get last time around from certain unions, from Democrat mayors. And he got another big endorsement that we're going to be talking about today as well that possibly could put him over the top in a very subtle manner. A group of people that usually don't answer polls very often, but do tend to be swayed by the leadership in their communities by something called block voting. And when you talk about the betting odds, and this is on Kalshi, the Republican Party, Jack, he is at 23% odds. That's, a 1 in 4 chance in a state that has not voted Republican at the presidential level since 1988. And you have the Democrat opponent trying to nationalize the race, essentially. And is that exactly working out for her? Well, it shows that there's an element of desperation. Jack is endorsed by Trump, and he has the enthusiasm of the MAGA base behind him, which is crucial because that's what you need, to win elections. You need something similar to the recipe that Glenn Youngkin had in Virginia in 2021. You're going to need, some crossover appeal, which Jack absolutely has among independent voters who may not be super fond of Donald Trump, but also he has appeal to Trump's base and can turn them out. And that's why you look at the betting odds and how they've shifted. He's doubled his chances essentially since the middle of September, which is huge, but he's got to keep that momentum going, and that we know this is anybody's ball game. I'm not saying it's a done deal and he's going to lose, and I'm not saying it's a done deal and he's going to win. But again, 23%, it could possibly be a good bet. You guys can check out Kalshi. If you sign up using my code, the link will be in the description and pinned comment. You get $10 free of free credit to bet on Kalshi, assuming you're legally able to do so. So we also have to talk about the enthusiasm, because this is kind of what we're seeing here. Mikey Sherrill does these photo op events, doesn't do them very often. Has 10, 15 people probably paid to be there. Jack's getting very, very large crowds in his favor. Now, crowd size isn't everything, but enthusiasm does matter. A lot of these candidates that have been falling short for the Republicans in special elections, they're not able to draw a crowd like this. And again, it's not everything, but is it really nothing? I'm not going to say this is proof Jack is going to win, but I think it is proof that voters on the Republican side, and even you could even say the MAGA side of the Republican Party that usually don't vote in these off-year elections as often or midterm years as often, they're energized. They are waiting in line to see this guy. They're packing fields to see him, and that's a very, very, very good thing, and it all comes down to turnout. The end game here is to make the red circles larger and to make the blue circles smaller. And if Jack can do that, he's going to win. And very importantly, he nabbed a very important endorsement. And this is not something that you could just brush off and say it's not going to matter, because this is a very large Orthodox Jewish community in the state of New Jersey that endorsed Phil Murphy, they have this thing called block voting. And what this means, and it's not all Orthodox Jews that do this, but you have segments, especially in New Jersey, of Orthodox Jews. They always vote as a block by and large, and that we know. Sometimes people will go against it, but usually these communities tend to vote the way their community leaders tell them to vote. It's called block voting. I'm not the biggest fan of it because it usually on net prevents people from voting Republican that otherwise would, but this is crucial because they're endorsing Jack. They're endorsing him. They did not endorse him last time, but they're endorsing him this time, and that is imperative for his victory because they have influence over, you could argue, 100,000 voters on net. Remember, we talked about the Muslim vote in Michigan ahead of the election. It's not the largest, percentage of the state, but even Dearborn, which voted like 70-30 Dem, if that flipped, you would see Donald Trump basically get all the margin or a sizable portion of the margin he needed in the state of Michigan to win the state of Michigan back. And it was part of his victory. He could have won without that shift, given everything else we saw in the state, but it was crucial in order to help him go out there and win Michigan by as much as he did. And New Jersey is kind of a similar phenomenon here with the Orthodox Jewish community that exists in certain parts of the New York City metro area. And the fact that this could sway, even if it sways 50,000 voters in total, that would be 100,000 on net. Keep in mind, you only really need to sway like 40-some thousand voters who voted for Phil Murphy to vote for Jack, and there's enough evidence to believe that could happen. Now, you have things like the national environment may not be the same. Are Republicans really fired up? Well, in New Jersey, they do seem to be fired up to a certain extent. The early voting data is not everything, but it looks good. They're going to need, as they usually would, a sizable election day turnout surge. But keep in mind, when you're dealing with an election where you use the baseline as 2021, that's a gubernatorial race, not 2024, because it's not a presidential race. Jack can get some voters that didn't show up for him last time, but maybe did show up for Trump and help Trump narrow the margin at the presidential level. That all helps, but he fell short by, you could say 84,300 votes roughly. And if he is able to convert 40,000 Murphy voters, which it's very likely that this group had sway over, and he's able to get that endorsement, that goes a long way, even more so in New Jersey than, certain parts of New York when it comes to block voting, because this is a very influential group. The VAAD, they're giving Jack their endorsement, and that's monumental. And it's not just them. It's certain unions. Republicans have been getting union support. We see it in Ohio. Sherrod Brown is running for Senate again. Even unions that supported Sherrod Brown in 2024 are supporting the incumbent Republican John Husted to serve a full term after the 2026 midterm. So he's getting unions. He's getting Democrat mayors. We've seen 3 or 4 very influential Democrat mayors endorse him, including in some heavy Hispanic areas that shifted right towards Trump, but maybe they still vote Democrat, places in Passaic County, for example, northern New Jersey. Donald Trump actually outran Jack in some of these places. If Jack just matches Trump's margin and these counties where Trump did better than Jack and just holds his own in these other parts, he's going to have a very, very, very good shot at victory. So again, I'm not entirely saying that he's guaranteed to win. It is an uphill climb with a Republican president in the White House. You're going to have lower turnout than a presidential year. That is true. Democrats tend to be angry at Donald Trump. That means that they are very likely, especially given the fact that they're a bunch of old people at this point that are voting for the Democrats. That's their enthusiastic base, the base that usually votes. It's, automatically in a state that still voted for Kamala Harris by 6, going to be an uphill climb. But you have a strong Republican candidate. 2021, you look at that baseline. These governor's elections are relatively depolarized, and Mikey Sherrill's an awful candidate. She has a just complete laundry list of scandals, and that's partially why she's actually lost ground in some of the polling. You look at some of these polls that we've seen. Even Quinnipiac, she went, she stayed at 51, but some of these other polls, You look at Qantas, 49 to 48. And some of these other polls that we've seen show her losing ground, and more importantly, they show Jack gaining ground. So will this hold up at the end of the day? We'll wait and see, but good news for Jack nonetheless. And we only have roughly a couple weeks before Election Day. So let's make it happen, New Jersey. Get out and vote for Jack. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.